At my mother's funeral, the loudest sound wasn't the choir. It was a whisper sharp enough to cut silk. "Cute dress," she breathed behind me, sweet as honey and twice as sticky. "Next time, borrow a real designer. That looks homemade." Several heads turned. A few eyes fell on the hem of my black dress, then slid back up, awkward, unsure. "Homemade," she said it like an insult. It was the dress I'd sewn the night before, after the last of the lilies arrived and the house grew quiet. A simple line, a soft drape, black like a sky before storm. I made it because Mom would have wanted me to, because every stitch felt like keeping her here a few breaths longer. I stood still, holding my father's arm, palms damp, palms remembering every night I watched Mom thread a needle with steady hands. Smash that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I didn't turn when that whisper landed. I didn't flinch when she laughed under her breath and added, "Looks like a copy of a Crane piece, but cheaper. It's sad." She made sure the word crane carried. She always did. Her voice knew how to find the edges of a room and scrape. She was Alyssa Crane, CEO of Crane and Coterie, the woman glossy magazines called a visionary, the woman women wanted to be, the woman who liked to arrive late and leave early so you'd feel the air shift when she moved. She was also the woman who stole my work, dressed it in a better press release, and called it hers. I kept my eyes on the casket. Home, that's what this dress was to me, and the label on the inside, it didn't say Crane. It said Myra and Noor, all capitals, hand-cut, a tiny stitched heart on the ampersand. Myra for Miriam, Noor for Nora, my mother and me. The label was mine. But this wasn't the moment to rip the truth out into the light. Not this moment. Not with hymns and hugs and eyes wet from grief. I breathed, in, out, the kind of breath you take when your future is one shaky step away and your past is heavy as wet wool. I wanted to turn and say, "Don't speak about my dress." I wanted my voice to sound like Mom's when she said my name, steady, warm, a promise. But I didn't. I placed my hand over the seam at my hip where I'd hidden a tiny zigzag, a signature stitch only my mother and I knew how to do. We called it the heartbeat. I held it and let the whisper float away like smoke. But here's the thing about smoke. It finds the rafters. It leaves a stain. What she didn't know, that this so-called copy she mocked began at our kitchen table, under a gold lamp, over warm tea and a quiet laugh that always broke when Mom was happy. What she didn't know, I was done being quiet. I didn't know it yet, but that whisper was the stitch that started everything. The stitch that would pull the truth loose, thread by thread, seam by seam, until everything she built came apart in my hands. And I would not yell, I would not throw, I would not beg. I would make something that could not be ignored. I would make justice. The kitchen table was our first studio. It was old oak. It had a burn mark from when Mom forgot a kettle once and laughed until she cried. It had a wobble if you leaned too hard, but it was strong, like her, like us. "Hold the fabric like a secret," Mom used to say, guiding my hands along the feed dogs of her machine. "Not too tight, not too loose. Feel it breathe." I grew up in cloth, in the whisper of muslin, in the crisp truth of cotton, in the way velvet asks for respect. I grew up in pins caught in my sleeves and tape measures around my neck and the sound of scissors biting clean through a new idea. Mom called me her sparrow, I called her my moon, and we called our dream Myra and Noor. Not a brand, not at first, just us. People started to notice. Neighbors, teachers, a woman from church who asked for a simple black dress and came back 2 weeks later with tears in her eyes because she felt like herself again. We never charged much. Mom said gratitude was a currency too. I said we should at least keep the lights on. We met in the middle. The label came on a Sunday. I drew it with a cheap pen on the back of a flyer for a yard sale. Myra and Noor, uneven and brave. Mom traced it, cleaned it, then took me downtown to a small print shop that still smelled like ink and hope. We ordered 50. We sewed the first one into a floral dress Mom made for the neighbor's daughter. I pressed it with my thumb and Mom smiled at me. "There," she said, "we exist." We took photos with a borrowed phone. We posted them. A few likes, a few shares, then a message. "You're talented," it read. "We should talk." Her name was Alyssa. She was local then, just starting. Her hair was the expensive kind of blonde, and her nails were a color you needed a reservation to wear. But she was charming, and her voice was a warm room in winter. "Your work is pure," she said, flipping through our little lookbook at our kitchen table. She touched the fabric the way you touch a painting. "It's timeless. It's not trying too hard. I love that." She smelled like bergamot and magazine gloss. I thought she was seeing us. I thought it was a miracle. She brought pastries in a white box and talked about capital and scaling in flagship stores. Half of it went over my head. All of it sang to my fear. Our rent was late. Mom's cough was getting worse. We needed money for a specialist. And here was a lifeline wearing a blazer. "I'll invest," she said. "I'll build the business side. You two keep designing. Imagine your work in windows, not just here. Imagine girls in cities you've never visited wearing Myra and Noor. Don't you want that?" Yes, I did. I wanted it so much my throat hurt. She laid out papers. She talked about equity and partnership and just a little legal arrangement to protect us both. She asked me to sign because I was the listed founder on our tiny website. "You're so young," she smiled. I remember that fire. Mom was tired that day. The cough had eaten her sleep. She trusted me. Trusted the woman with the glossy smile who said she loved our seam work. We signed. I wish I could say my pen hovered. I wish I could say the ink bled like a warning. But it didn't. It was smooth. It felt like progress. A week later, Alyssa stopped texting as much. She was in meetings. She was on calls. Then the boxes arrived. Not at our house, on screens, on streets, on shoulders. Crane and Coterie launched with a small capsule. The first dress, oh, I knew it. It had the softness of Mom at midnight and the clean line I'd drawn on a napkin. It had our tilt at the collar, the way we cut our waist just a breath higher than the textbook said. It had our heartbeat stitch pressed flat and called something else. The press release said, designed by CEO and creative director, Alyssa Crane. They said a new vision of intimacy and fashion. They said a rising star. Our name, gone, our label, removed, our story. Rewritten. I called straight to voicemail. I emailed. "We appreciate your passion, Nora. Let's remember we're all on the same team." It was signed by someone named Bev. We weren't just cut out, we were erased. Mom held me until I fell asleep, and when I woke, she had made tea and written a list. Keep receipts. Protect our sketches. Stay calm, no shouting, win slow. Slow, I asked. She took everything. Mom nodded, and there was a strength in her eyes I had only seen when she lifted me out of a river once as a kid. "She took the part that looks shiny right now," she said. "She didn't take who you are. Don't let her." I wanted to burn every white box with Crane's name on it. Instead, I started to collect proof. This was Mom's way. Patient, precise, no torn hems, no loose threads. I did what most people would call foolish. I took a job at Crane and Coterie. Not in the front, not in the lighting and applause. I went to the back, to the room where fabric arrives rolled and raw, to the place where patterns breathe. I used my middle name on the application, Elise, and cut my hair shorter. I made my voice smaller in the interview, but my hands did what they always did. They told the truth. They knew how to feel a seam. They knew how to bring a line to life. "Where did you pick up this technique?" asked a man named Damien, the CFO who sometimes wandered downstairs like he had to remember what money was for. "At home," I said. "I grew up with fabric." He watched me sew the curve of a hip so it hugged air like it was a person. He watched my fingers stop at the exact place the heartbeat stitch should begin. I did not sew it. Not there. Not for them. "You're hired," he said. "You're underpaid," he added under his breath. The work was quiet. The work was honest. It was the labels that felt like lies. They stacked them in small bowls, those smooth little tags, Crane on white, Crane on black, Crane like a stamp on bread. I touched them and wanted to scream. I met people who were good. A girl named Isla who hummed when she cut. A man named Theo who could turn a coat inside out and make it look better. We were family in there, not an easy one, but a family. We kept each other fed. We kept each other laughing. Every few days, Alyssa came down, heels clicking like a metronome. "We're pushing the launch by a week," she'd say. "We're adding a capsule." She'd smile like we were the lucky ones. She never recognized me. Why would she? I was a set of hands. I was a checklist that moved. She wore my work and didn't know it. The small tilt at the collar, the ease at the sleeve, the secret ways we cut bias so a dress could hold you like you were loved. Sometimes late, when everyone went home and the city fell into its own kind of sleep, I pulled one of our old sketches out of my backpack and put it beside the new crane sample. A perfect mirror. The same that was ours. The same that was. Proof. Damien saw me one night. He didn't say anything at first. He leaned in the doorway like he was tired of being quiet. "I'm not blind," he said finally. "I've been here since the first check cleared. I know talent when I see it, and I know theft." He slid a folder across the table. It had receipts I thought I'd never find again, old emails, a copy of the initial agreement I signed, and notes from a meeting I never attended. "She planned it," he said. "The name change, the story switch. She said we'll fold the local label into mine. No one will care. She is very good at making people not care." My throat closed. "Why are you giving me this?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Because I was here when she promised this would be fair. I'm not sleeping much. That's usually a sign." I smiled for the first time that week. It was small and new and had a question in it. There were others, too. Isla took photos of an early prototype with a date stamp that predated Crane's launch by months. Theo showed me a box in the back with our original Myra and Nor tags that never got used, shoved behind boxes of new season belts. A mistake, a secret, a lifeline. We worked, we ate, we gathered threads. Mom got weaker. She would smile at me with a softness that said she didn't want me to see how much pain there was. I sewed a black dress for her in case. She laughed at me and said, "I am not going anywhere." But she kept the dress for luck. She liked the fabric. It was silk with a soft, stubborn memory. It refused to forget its shape even when you demanded it. "Good fabric is like a person," she said once. "It keeps who it is even after it's pressed." We had less time than I wanted, more than I feared, just enough to make promises. "I'll get it back," I told her one night at the kitchen table, while rain tapped out a steady rhythm on the windows. "Our name, our story." "I don't need it back," she said, reaching for my cheek. "I need you to be free, but if justice is a coat you can wear without it scratching you, try it on." I rested my head on her lap like I was 12. "I won't shout," I said. "I'll sew loud." "That's my girl," she whispered. Hospitals turn time into a hallway. It bends, it narrows, it stretches out. You count it in plastic cups and soft socks and the light the machine throws on the floor. Sometimes it feels like a fight inside a storm. Sometimes it's a whisper you can't catch. The night before the surgery, I brought Mom the black dress I made, just to show her, just in case. She laughed. She cried. She told me to stop fussing. We fell asleep holding hands. When morning came, the nurse smiled like she had to. I watched Mom disappear behind a swinging door and felt every stitch in my body go loose. And then she was gone. It wasn't dramatic. There were no alarms. There was a doctor with kind eyes and a voice that understood windows. There was a clock that didn't matter anymore. There was me, small, in a room too white, with a dress folded in my bag and a label scratching my palm. Grief is heavy. It makes the world very quiet. It makes everything loud. We planned the service. People brought food. People brought advice. People brought silence and sat in it with us, which is the bravest thing. I spent the night at the kitchen table again. The lamp made a warm circle on the wood. I took the black dress out of my bag and unpicked the label I'd sewn into it, the new one, the compromise, the placeholder. I pulled out a small tin and found one of our original Myra and Nor tags. I pressed it flat. I ran my finger over the little heart. I sewed it into the dress where it belonged, each stitch neat, each stitch a prayer. On the underside, I added something no one would see, for M always. At the funeral, the sky was gray in a respectful way. People wore black and carried umbrellas that looked like little galaxies. My dad stood like a tree. I pressed into him. We said hello to hands and eyes and pity. I wore the dress. And she came. Alyssa arrived like a storm with product in her hair. Late, glossy, camera-ready, a white bouquet in her arms with a little card that said, "Thinking of you, eh?" She hugged my father even though he didn't know her. She kissed my cheek. "Such a tough time," she said, voice low, eyes scanning the room in a way that counted things. "But you look fine. It's good you came." I said thank you, because grief makes you polite. She didn't go to the front. She stayed in back with people who smelled like perfume and opportunity. She whispered. It found my ear anyway. "Cute dress. Next time borrow a real designer, it's giving thrift." My hands went cold. My chest burned. The choir started a hymn about grace. I stood and held the seam at my hip and thought about how easy it is for some people to climb into your house and rename the furniture. She looked at me like she owned my shape. After the service, people gathered in the hall, balancing paper cups of coffee and small plates of things no one wanted. She slid up next to me, smile soft. "We're doing a major launch next week," she murmured. "Partnership with Leona House. You should come, it's private. You like clothes, right?" I stared at her. I saw my reflection in her sunglasses, even though we were indoors. "Congratulations," I said. My voice did not shake. "You deserve what's coming." She laughed like I'd made a joke. "Oh, I do." I took the card she pressed into my hand. It glittered. It promised an event. It promised a stage. It promised press. A place with light. People told me I should rest. People told me to eat. People told me to sleep. I went home. I opened Mom's sewing machine and set it on the kitchen table. I took out a fresh needle. I poured tea and did not drink it. I laid out what I had. The original Myra, and nor label in my dress. The heartbeat stitch only we could sew. Damien's folder of dates, receipts, memos. Photos from Isla with time stamps older than Crane's birth. Theo's box of unused Myra, and nor tags hidden in their stockroom. An email from Alyssa on that first day, calling my pattern pure. The contract I signed without a lawyer. The silence that had tried to make me small. I added one more thing, a plan. You don't break a liar with a bigger lie. You break a liar by making the truth very hard to ignore. Next week, on her stage, I would step into the light wearing the very copy she mocked. I would show what can't be mimicked. I would show the stitch that breathes. I would tell the story she buried under flowers and headlines. No yelling, no pushing, no scenes. Just a seam that only I can make. Just a name that only I can claim. I set my phone on the table and called a number I told myself I'd never need. "Hi," I said when the voice answered. "My name is Nora. I have a story you want, and proof." On the other end, a reporter breathed in. "Tell me everything," the reporter said. We met in a diner that watched the river. It had red booths with a tear in mine, a waitress who called everyone sweetheart, and coffee that tasted like it was trying hard. It was the kind of place where truth didn't feel expensive. Her name was Kaya. She wore a denim jacket and a pencil behind her ear even though her phone could have done the work. "It helps me listen," she said, tapping the pencil. "Some stories need a human hand." I told her about the kitchen table and the first label. I told her about the pastries in a white box and a contract I didn't understand. I told her about the capsule launch, the tilted collar, the way she pressed our stitch flat and gave it a new name. I told her about Mom's cough and the black dress and the whisper at the funeral that sliced like paper. Kaya took notes. She didn't pity me. She measured the facts like fabric. She asked for dates. She asked for proof. I slid everything across the booth, Damien's folder with the receipts, Isla's photos with time stamps, Theo's text about the hidden box of Myra and Nor tags, my original sketchbook with tea stains and fingerprints, screenshots of emails where Alyssa said our pattern was pure. Kaya's face didn't change, but I saw something in her eyes that looked like a door opening. "You have a story," she said. "But stories need two things to stand up when people try to knock them over: documentation and witnesses." I have both, I said, and I have something else. What? I told her about the heartbeat stitch, how Mom taught it to me by touch, how it wasn't in a book, how it wasn't on YouTube, how it was ours, how I could sew it with my eyes closed because I learned it listening to her laugh. It's not a logo, I said. It's a skill, it's a signature, you can't buy it. Kaya tapped the pencil. Can the general public see it? If they're looking, I said. If they're told what to look for. She nodded slowly. We'll tell them, but remember, this cannot be just about a stitch. This is about telling the truth out loud. We'll need corroboration. Damien will speak, I said. He's tired of not sleeping. Good, she said. I'll record him and we'll need a follow-up source. Theo, I asked. Isla. Both, she said. Off the record first, then on. We protect them until they're ready. And one more thing, we need a clean moment. No chaos. A place where you speak and can't be cut off. Next week, I said. Private launch, Leona House partnership, I have an invitation. She whistled, a low sound. They love a speech at those things. They love cameras even more. Could be a good place to make the truth loud. I'm not trying to destroy her, I said. The word felt heavy. I'm trying to stop the lie. Sometimes stopping a lie looks loud, Kaya said. We'll do it clean. We'll do it in daylight. But you need to be ready for her to throw words. She'll say you're bitter. She'll say you're confused. She'll say it's complicated. I'll sew instead of shout, I said. I promise. Kaya smiled, small and fierce. Okay, here, how we do this. We drew a plan on a napkin that still smelled like syrup. Steps like neat stitches, nothing sloppy. Step 1, she'd interview Damien off-site. He'd bring the folder. She'd get dates, memos, old invoices. Receipts matter, she said. Their numbers tell a story. Step 2, she'd meet Isla and Theo in a park at lunch. We'll talk about methods, she said. I need to know how things moved, who ordered what, when your designs were used. Step 3, she'd talk to a clinic attorney, Amelia, who volunteered at a community center and knew how to read contracts without making you feel small. I won't sue at a launch, I said. This isn't about papers. Kaya nodded. It's about clarity. Amelia will translate the mess. Step 4, we'd set a timer on the article. I'll write a long piece, she said. With photos, timeline, quotes. It will publish the moment the launch starts, not a minute before. She held up a hand. And not to create chaos, to create context, so when you speak, the room has a map. Step 5, we'd place the truth in many places at once. Amelia would hold a sealed envelope with copies of everything. Damien would carry another. Theo too. If anyone tries to shut one door, 10 more open, Kaya said. That's the point. Step 6, I do what I do. I'd sew. I want to be backstage, I said. I want to be near the things she's selling. Can you get there? Kaya asked. Yes, I said. I'm already there. We paid, and the waitress tucked the change into a glass that said College Fund in hand-drawn letters. Outside, the river moved like it always does, quiet, relentless. The city breathed around us. The plan felt like a coat that fit. I didn't go home. I went to the back room at Crane and Coterie and asked for extra shifts. Hungry for overtime, Theo joked, pushing a cart with spools of thread that looked like candy. Hungry for truth, I said. He raised his eyebrows. He didn't ask. He didn't need to. We stayed late, and I watched the event take shape. Boxes arrived with foil-stamped invitations. Candles smelling like someone's idea of elegance. An easel with a sketch of the main piece. A black coat with a sweep like a summer storm. Leona House will love that, Isla said, humming. She loves movement. You can see it on her face when the fabric floats. She also loves honesty, I said. You can see that too. Damien came down 2 nights before the event. He didn't touch the fabric. He stood in the door like someone who had come to say a hard thing. I spoke to a reporter, he said low. You can be angry at me later if that's wrong. It's right, I said. Kaya is fair. He looked relieved. Tomorrow, I talk to the board. If they listen, we can steer this. If they don't, at least my conscience won't be a wolf anymore. Damien, I said, you're brave. He shook his head. No, you are, I'm just late. The night before the launch, I put the black coat on a dress form when everyone went home. Lights low, room humming, the city outside putting on its own show. I took a deep breath. Mom, I whispered, touching the hem, help me. I threaded the needle with black silk. I ran my hand along the edge, feeling the rhythm like a pulse. Long, short, short, long, breathe, don't pull, don't rush, hear it. Long, short, short, long. The heartbeat. I sewed the hem with our signature stitch, not to ruin it, to make it whole, to make the thing she was selling carry the truth quietly inside it, like a letter in a pocket that waits for the right moment to be read. I finished with one tiny thing. On the inside, where no spotlight would look, I knotted the thread and made a small M and N, not big, not flashy, just there, like a whisper you can feel with your fingers. I didn't sleep. Grief has many seasons. That night it was the kind that kept you awake and didn't let you eat. In the morning, the city put on its shine. In the mirror, I looked like someone I recognized but hadn't met yet. I wore the black dress I'd sewn for Mom's service. I slipped my hand along the seam and felt the label. I added her ring on a chain around my neck. I placed a small sewing kit in my clutch, not to fight, to finish. Truth, I said to the girl in the mirror, be louder than fear. Launch day tasted like metal and sugar. Cameras, laughter with sharp corners, perfume heavy as a promise. The venue was a converted warehouse with flowers that looked like they were told to be important. White walls, black chairs, a stage that wanted to be a confession. Backstage, fabric hung like quiet hurricanes, models stepping into garments with hands raised, trusting us not to prick them. A stylist fussing with a strand of hair like it carried the whole event on it. Steam from irons curling in the air like ghosts. Alyssa moved through it like a brand, tailored suit, smooth words, a phone glued to her palm. We are making history, she said to a camera pointed at her then at us. We are honoring craft. I stared at the black coat. It gleamed under the lights as if it knew, as if it was waiting. Theo rolled a rack past me. We ready? He asked, eyes kind. As ready as a stitch can be, I said. Isla squeezed my arm. I brought snacks, she said, pulling out a granola bar as if that could solve everything. It almost did. We laughed, quiet and shaky. Damien found me behind a curtain. He looked like a man whose tie knew his secrets. The board is here, he said. Not all of them, but enough. They like to be seen right before they pretend they didn't see anything. Did they listen? I asked. He swallowed. They asked if you're emotional. I said yes, that's called being alive. I also said documented. That made them blink. On my phone, a text from Kaya, counting down. Publish at 7 p.m. I'm in the 5th row. Denim jacket. Side aisle. The photographer is with me. Under it, another text from a number saved as Amelia Clinic. Imaging your mom smiling at you. Forwarded the packet to my secure email. Don't carry the world alone. I breathed in, out. The room buzzed, doors opened and closed. You could feel the press arrive, not with noise exactly, but with attention. Questions floated in the air before they were spoken. Who? How? Why now? I checked the coat's hem one last time. No snag, no pull. The heartbeat was where it belonged. It was quiet, it was sure. Places, someone called, voice even. The word moved through the room like a soft command. Music thumped through speakers, low and warm. The host walked onto the stage to a line of light. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Backstage had its own kind of silence, the kind that lives just beneath the sound. I stood in it and felt Mom's hand on my shoulder, warm as tea. Whatever happens, she said in my head, don't let anyone make you hard. I won't, I whispered back. The show began. One by one, looks floated out and came back like tides. The audience made the sounds audiences make when they're deciding if they like being told what they should like. A murmur for the long skirts. A hush for the sharp suit. A little gasp for a dress that swirled like music. I saw Kaya in the 5th row. She didn't wave. She watched. Her face was a notebook. Halfway through, a man with silver hair and a good memory took the front row. Leona House, in black, with a cane that was more of a statement than a need. Beside her, a woman with quick hands and a measuring tape in her purse, the head tailor, Bridget. I knew her by the way she looked at seams first, faces second. My heart thumped. It matched the stitch. "Showpiece in two," Theo whispered. His voice carried the shape of a prayer. I moved closer to the curtain. Beyond it, Alyssa stood at a podium with a little smile. "This collection," she was saying, "is personal. It's about heritage. It's about the quiet work we never post on Instagram. It's about the hand that still matters." I didn't swallow the laugh. It would have cut my throat. One more look, one more turn. Then the model in the black coat stepped forward, spine long, eyes soft, the coat alive around her like a story you've told yourself in the dark. Lights found her, music dipped, breath caught. The hem glowed for a second like it knew it was being seen. Leona House leaned forward. Bridget leaned closer, squinting, the way my mother used to squint at a newborn hem and say, there you are." "Heartbeat," Bridget mouthed. I saw it. I saw the word on her lips. And right then, phones buzzed in pockets. Heads bent, then snapped up. A ripple moved through the room that wasn't about fabric. It was about truth arriving on a screen. Kaya's piece had published. An usher placed a microphone near the aisle for questions after the walk. It wasn't an accident. These events love a bow on top. They love the story of a visionary. They love a speech that tells you what you just felt. "Q&A," someone whispered. "Keep it tight." I set my hand on the seam of my dress and stepped closer to the light. The final note of music stretched thin and broke. Applause rose like a tide. Alyssa lifted her chin and stepped forward, palm open, voice warm. "Thank you for joining us tonight," she said, smiling. "Leona, it is an honor. This is about legacy and—" A hand went up in the second row. Not mine, Bridget's. "May I ask a question first?" she said, her voice educated by pins and years. People didn't say no to Bridget. She threaded respect into every word. "Of course," Alyssa said, smile fixed. Bridget pointed, gentle, to the hem of the showpiece. "Who did your hem?" she asked. "I see something particular." Alyssa laughed, a practiced sound. "Our atelier," she said. "We have brilliant hands." "What do you call that stitch?" Bridget asked. Her face was kind, her eyes were not. Alyssa's smile tightened. "It's our house finish," she said. "A Crane signature." I stood. My legs felt like a bridge. My voice did not wobble. "It has a name," I said, clear enough for the back row. "My mother called it the heartbeat." Every head turned. The host made the face hosts make when something unscripted happens, and they hope it's still friendly. "And who are you?" Alyssa asked, voice sweet. It was the tone you use with a neighbor you keep borrowing sugar from without paying back. I took 3 steps into the aisle. The lights did not love me. They loved the stage. But cameras are curious creatures. They turned. "I'm Nora," I said. "Myra and Nor." A silence landed and sat down like it had a ticket. People blinked at their phones, at the article on Kaya's page with photos of our kitchen table, with old dates, with sketches that matched the line that just walked by. A whisper moved like smoke. "Myra, Nora, that's her." Alyssa tilted her head like she was trying to remember a song she used to sing. "Oh," she said, smooth. "Our former collaborator, we're so proud of." "It wasn't collaboration," I said. "It was erasure." Gasps are not loud. They are like small doors opening at once. "This is not the time," Alyssa said, smile sharp now. "We're celebrating." "We're telling the truth," I said. "They are not the same." Leona House lifted her chin and raised a hand like she was blessing a child. "Let the young woman speak," she said. The room listened. When Leona speaks, rooms behave. My knees shook. I thought of Mom saying, "Don't let anyone make you hard." I put my hand into my clutch and felt the small weight of my sewing kit like a lighthouse. I stepped forward to the edge of the stage. A security guard shifted, then saw Damien shake his head. They waited. They weren't sure whose stage it was anymore. "Alyssa," I said, soft. "When you first came to our kitchen, you held our work like it mattered. You promised credit and care. You promised food on our table. You called our pattern pure. Which we honored, she said quickly. We built a platform for your small. You removed our label, I said. You called our work your signature. You took our story and shipped it with a better press release. Where is the evidence? She asked, turning to the cameras, spreading her hands, selling doubt. Because in this industry, rumors are easy, talent is hard. Evidence likes company, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Damien. The CFO stood up from the back like a man who had decided to stop hiding. He walked to the aisle, a folder in his hands, and spoke into a microphone the usher reluctantly held. I was here from the first check, he said. I watched a promise made in a kitchen get broken in a boardroom. Here are invoices dated before our launch, bulks of fabric ordered from Nora's measurements. Here are internal memos referring to the design as Myra and Nor dress. Here is the original agreement she signed that includes a clause about credit to be publicly displayed. We did not display it. A murmur rolled. A board member in a neckline that cost a car leaned forward, as if checking the stitching on the truth. Kaya lifted her hand from the fifth row. Kaya Benton, City Ledger, she said. To be clear, your press release for the first capsule said, designed by CEO. That's on record. Why? Because I lead this house, Alyssa said, finding her stance again. I inspire, I gather. That is the role. Credit is fluid. Teamwork is. It's not fluid when it erases names, Leona House said quietly, and the quiet cut more than any shout could. She turned to Bridget. The hem. Bridget nodded. Heartbeat stitch, she said. Myra taught a workshop at the community center 12 years ago. I watched her sew that with her eyes closed while the coffee burned. It's not common. It's not in books. It's a signature, and I am tired of signatures being stolen because thieves call it inspiration. The word thief hung in the air, heavy as wet velvet. No one moved to lift it. Alyssa laughed again. It sounded like glass. This is absurd, she said. Hem stitches are not unique. Anyone can. Do it, I said. The room leaned in. Do what? She asked, feigning innocence. Sew it, I said, and the word tasted like home. Sew the stitch you say is yours. A hush. Even the lights seemed to listen. Theo appeared like a friend in a storm, placing a small table near the stage with a needle, thread, and a scrap of the coat fabric. Someone must have brought it from the back in that breath between denial and proof. The table scraped softly. The sound echoed. I don't sew on stage, Alyssa said, almost laughing, almost crying. I am an executive. That's clear, Damien said under his breath, into a microphone that wasn't fully off. A few people choked on their drinks. I climbed the 2 steps to the stage, each foot sure. My heart was a drum. The needle felt like an old friend. I threaded it. I breathed. I don't want your ruin, I said to Alyssa, quiet enough for only the first row to hear. I want my name. Then I turned to the room. This is the heartbeat, I said, and the projector behind us, hungry for content, grabbed the camera feed and placed my hands 10 feet tall on the wall. It was showmanship without cruelty. It was a demo without a sales pitch. Long, short, long. The needle slipped, the thread sighed, the room forgot to breathe. Not too tight, I whispered like my mother. Not too loose, feel it breathe. At the last stitch, I nodded and turned the fabric. It lay flat. It moved with the air like it had lungs. It holds you without holding you hostage, I said. Someone in the back clapped. They couldn't help it. They were seeing something true. And inside your coat, I said to Alyssa softly, there's something you didn't see because you don't look at the inside. May I? She went very still. I took the hem gently, the way you lift a sleeping child, and turned it so the inside faced the light. It was neat, of course it was. We took pride in that. And in one corner, tucked near the seam, 2 tiny letters sewn in love. M and N. The camera saw it, the board saw it, the internet saw it. The lie did what lies do when they meet light. It fell apart. Alyssa opened her mouth. No words came. Silence can be violent without a single sharp sound. It can strip you. It can hold you. It can tell the truth out loud just by not hiding. We stood in it, the coat in my hands, the hem turned like a secret now spoken. Then, a voice that carried more years than any press kit. I bought a dress from a community fundraiser 12 years ago, Leona House said, rising slow, cane planted with care. It was black, simple, balanced like a prayer. It had a hem that felt like a heartbeat when you walked. I wore it to a quiet dinner. My husband reached for my hand and said, "You look like home." I kept that dress. She glanced at Bridget. The tailor nodded. Then Leona did something you don't see often. She opened her purse and pulled out a folded cloth, black, old, pressed. She must have told Bridget to pack it. Maybe she'd planned to tell a different story. Maybe stories decide how they want to be told. She unfolded it with respect and lifted the hem, and there it was, the same breath of a stitch. The same language, the same signature. "Craft is a person," Leona said, looking at me, past me, somehow at my mother. "It has fingerprints. Do not tell me fingerprints are a team effort when you have sanded the name off." Alyssa swallowed. "We always credit the atelier," she began, the words brittle. "You credit yourself," Kaya said from her row, standing now, voice steady like a bridge. "Your website lists you as lead designer on pieces dated before your house existed. The invoices in the packet show materials ordered to the exact measurements of sketches in Nora's book. The memo on March 12th uses the phrase, folding Myra and Norin to Crane quietly. I would like to ask you on the record, when you used that phrase, did you mean without consent or without noise?" "Out of context," Alyssa said. "We empowered." "You renamed," Damien said, stepping closer, courage making him taller. "You erased. I signed my name to numbers that made it possible. I am sorry, Nora." "The apology belongs to my mother," I said, "but I accept the part that's mine." Someone near the back, the board attorney, crisp suit, eyes like receipts, leaned into a woman with diamonds. They whispered. The woman's jaw hardened. Money recognizes risk fast. The host tried to take the event back. "We have time for one more que." "We have time for a correction," Bridget said. Leona turned to the audience. "I will not be moving forward with a partnership tonight," she said simply. "I will not put my name beside confusion. Until credit is made right in public and the House understands the difference between inspiration and theft, I am stepping back." The word theft hung again. It didn't need help. It sat like a chair someone should have pulled out earlier. Alyssa's face managed a smile that broke in the middle. "This is unnecessary drama," she said. "Nora, if you wanted to be part of." "I did," I said. "I wanted to be part of what was promised, not the story that was sold." A woman from the third row spoke up, shaky but loud. "I interned at your office," she said, eyes on Alyssa. "I ghost-stitched 3 pieces that ran under your name. You said that's how fashion works." "It doesn't have to," Isla whispered from behind the curtain, not quite loud enough, but I felt it. Kaya's phone lit up. She looked down and then up at me like a friend. The headline moved across screens like a tide. "The hands behind the brand. How a local label became a CEO's origin story." The board attorney stepped forward, small steps, microphone clipped on like a shield. "As counsel to the company," she said, "we are issuing an immediate review of past attributions and agreements. Operations will continue." "Not the message," the diamond woman hissed under her breath, but the mic caught it. A wave of discomfort rolled. I lifted my chin. I didn't want collapse. I wanted correction. "I am not here to shut you down," I said to the room, to the cameras, to the internet that would chew this and spit it out in pieces. "I am here to claim what's mine. Not your stores, not your jobs, not your dreams, just my name, my mother's love, our label. We exist." I set the hem back down with care, like laying a hand on a sleeping shoulder. I placed the needle on the table. I looked at Alyssa. Her eyes were wet and empty. She looked like someone whose story had been taken too, maybe by herself. "You can fix this," I said quietly. "Say my name." She stared at me. The silence changed. It grew teeth. It waited. Alyssa opened her mouth. It took a long time for the words to find themselves. "Myra and Nor," she said finally, the words leaving her like something heavy set down. "The stitch is theirs." She didn't say more. She didn't need to. The room exhaled. The cameras fed. The truth sat down like a guest who had been standing too long and finally found a chair. Security didn't move. The host didn't speak. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but the tiny hum of lights and the sound of fabric settling. Outside, the city kept being a city. A car honked and then stopped, almost like it remembered it was too close to something sacred. I stepped back from the stage and felt my knees again. Theo caught my elbow. Isla squeezed my arm. Damien nodded once like a man who'd finally told the truth to himself in a language he understood. I didn't cry, not then. My eyes were dry and heavy as stones. There would be fallout. There would be meetings. There would be statements with words like clarify. There would be people who called me brave and people who called me a problem. There would be nights I doubted this and mornings I didn't. But in that room, under those lights, with that coat and those 2 small letters inside, my mother existed again. Our label breathed. We had been made small and quiet. We were not anymore. Outside the venue, the night air felt different, like it had learned a new word and wanted to say it over and over. Truth. Cameras spilled out to the curb. People did that polite hustle that looks like nothing until you're in it. A man in a velvet jacket shouted into his phone, "It's everywhere. No, right now. Refresh." A woman in a silver dress read Kaya's article out loud to a friend as if reading a prayer in a language she'd just discovered. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Some of the messages were from people I didn't know. A seamstress in Detroit saying, "I can breathe again." A designer in Austin sending a photo of her first label and crying face emojis. A teacher at the community center telling me, "Your mom would be so loud with quiet joy." I paused at the curb. I pressed my palm to my chest and felt the ring under my dress, warm with skin and memory. Theo came up behind me. "Don't go alone," he said, gentle. "Even heroes need a ride." "I'm not a hero," I said. "I'm a tailor with a mouth." He laughed soft. "Same thing tonight." Damien slid out of the doors like a man who had just put something heavy down. "The board wants an emergency meeting. Tonight." He glanced up at the windows where white curtains trembled like they were listening. "They're scared. That's when people either do the right thing or a terrible thing." "Which one do you think?" I asked. He thought about it. "Depends on who is loud in the room." "Then let's be loud," I said, and my voice didn't shake. We didn't go to some shiny tower. We went 3 blocks down to their headquarters, glass and steel that tried to look kind but smelled like fresh flowers and control. The lobby receptionist had a face that had seen everything and become wallpaper. She handed us visitor badges like they could make us invisible. They didn't. In the elevator, the mirrored walls made us into a little army. Me in my black dress with a sewing kit in my clutch, Damien in a suit that finally looked like it fit, Kaya with her denim and her camera friend unnamed, Amelia, the community attorney, joining us halfway through the lobby like she had always been on her way. "Thank you for coming," Amelia said, catching my eyes, calm as a lake on a still day. I skimmed the contract again. The credit clause, "It's your light switch, we're going to flip it." "What if they try to buy me quiet?" I asked. She smiled without humor. "Then we say no." On the boardroom floor, the carpet was thick as a promise, deadening footsteps, trying to soften what gets said in rooms like these. Inside, a long table, a view of the city like a painting, water bottles standing like soldiers. Board members sat in their rich silence. One had a scarf folded just so. Another wore a watch that looked like it told time in a different language. The company attorney, sleek, silver, precise, sat ready with a laptop open to a blank page that looked like an excuse waiting to be written. Alyssa was there too, in a chair that seemed smaller than she remembered it this morning. "Nora," the chairwoman said, diamonds like ice, voice like summer, "we are grateful you're here." "Your press release said unfounded," Kaya said, not bothering with hello. 2 minutes after you posted it, you took it down. Why?" The chairwoman blinked. She wasn't used to questions coming wrapped like that. "We are adjusting our messaging," she said. "We want to reflect our values." "Your values posted my work under someone else's name," I said, simple as cutting straight. "That's the value we're here about." A silence landed. It didn't stay. The attorney cleared her throat. "We're here to discuss pragmatics," she said. "A path forward that is fair and expedient." "Fair is slow sometimes," Amelia said, setting her bag down, folding her hands. "Expedient is how we end up here." The chairwoman tried a smile and aimed it at me like a beam of light. "What do you want, Nora?" she asked. "If we can resolve this privately." "No," I said. The word was a door. It closed softly, but it closed. "No more private. We signed privately. We were erased publicly. We correct in public." The attorney's eyes slid to Amelia. Something sharp passed between them, two women who knew the way knives can be hidden in sentences. "Let's talk terms," Amelia said. We laid them out like pieces on a table before a cut. Immediate public correction on all channels. A statement that Myra and Noor designed specific pieces in the first crane and coterie capsule and subsequent collections were used. Name spelled right, no, we're inspired by nonsense. Front page. Pin it. Keep it. Attribution in perpetuity. Every piece derived from our original patterns to carry a hang tag. Original design by Myra and Noor. Not a footnote. A headline on the tag. Financial restitution. A percentage of net profits from the capsule and reissues to go to the Myra and Noor Fund for Community Craft, scholarships, machines, a sewing room at the community center named after my mother. Not hush money. Back pay. Rights. Reversion of the Myra and Noor name and original pattern library. Their house can license, transparent, documented in a contract that even a tired person with grief could read. Culture, an independent audit of crediting practices. Public report. Names removed for safety, stories included for truth. Leadership change, a real one, not a vacation. Accountability you can point to, not wording that says everything and nothing. The chairwoman sat very still. She was good at it. "That is extensive," she said. "It's the minimum," Amelia said, and managed to keep her voice like warm tea. "We haven't even asked for damages beyond profits. We aren't trying to break you. We're trying to stop the break from spreading." Alyssa laughed, a small sound that sounded almost human again. "You're using this moment to elevate yourself," she said to me, tone like an arm around my shoulder that squeezes too tight. "You don't know what it takes to run a house. You think stitches are the whole story." "I think stitches are the only story that last," I said. "The rest is marketing." She leaned forward. "We built you." "No," I said. "You built a story about you with our work." Her eyes flashed. For a second I saw the girl she once was. Hungry, smart, scared, then it was gone. The attorney whispered to the chairwoman. The board members shifted like a flock thinking about turning. A phone vibrated. The woman with the scarf glanced down and paled. "Leona House just posted," she said. "She's funding a craft as a person fellowship. First partner, Myra and Noor." The room changed temperature. The chairwoman turned to me with new math in her eyes. "We can agree," she said carefully. "We will need wording. We will need." "We need clarity," Kaya said, "and speed." Damien cleared his throat. He wasn't just numbers now. He was a person, too. "It's right," he said to the table. "We make it right, or this house doesn't have walls anymore. It has a name with nowhere to live." The chairwoman nodded like she had been expecting to hear that from someone else, but would take it from him. "Ms. Whitlow," she said to the attorney, "draft it." "Tonight?" the attorney asked, like the word was new. "Now," the chairwoman said. "We don't sleep until the correction is up." They offered me a water bottle. I didn't take it. My mouth was dry, but my throat was strong. Alyssa stood slowly. The room was suddenly too small for her or just the right size. "I need to speak to Nora privately," she said. "No," Amelia said, with a smile that felt like a locked door you're grateful for. "Transparency helps us not get lost." Alyssa's jaw worked, then softened. "Please," she said to me, 2 minutes. I looked at Amelia. She lifted a shoulder. "You know her voice," she said. "It's your call." I stepped into the hallway with Alyssa. It smelled like citrus and a little fear. The city through the glass looked calm. We stood like strangers who used to know each other. You could have come to me, she said, small now. You could have asked. I did, I said. You sent Bev to tell me we're on the same team. She flinched at the name. I wanted this to be clean. It is now, I said. She blinked hard. For a heartbeat, she looked like someone I could have had coffee with. Then the armor slid back. They're going to push me out, she said, trying on the role of victim like a coat in a mirror. They'll say they have to. You did that. You did, I said, but you can still do one more right thing. What? Tell the truth out loud. On your page, in your own words. Say my mother's name. Don't try to make it cute. Don't ask for forgiveness in the same breath you protect yourself. Just say it. She stared at me. Will that fix anything? She asked. It will fix one thing, I said, which is more than nothing. We went back in. Papers had multiplied. Words had been found. The attorney read the bones of a statement, acknowledgments, dates, the clause about credit they had ignored. The chairwoman added a sentence. We regret the harm caused. It was corporate and careful, but it didn't lie. Add this, Amelia said. We are establishing the MIRAM Center for Community Craft in partnership with Myra and Noor and the East Ridge Community Center. She spelled it slow, like she was stitching. The M stands for Myra. Don't blur it. They looked at one another. Money did its math again. The chairwoman nodded. Approved. We signed, not away, toward. On the ride down, we didn't talk. The elevator hummed like a song without words. Damien rubbed his eyes. Kaya typed without looking at her screen, a thing I didn't know people could do until that moment. Amelia put a hand on my shoulder and squeezed. It wasn't pity. It was friendship. At the lobby, the receptionist lifted her chin at me, the smallest salute. She had seen everything. She was not wallpaper, not tonight. On the street, the air felt like a choir finishing a hymn. A black car pulled up, sleek, polite. Alyssa stepped toward it, then paused. She turned. Her mouth moved. For a second, I thought she would say my mother's name without being asked. She didn't. She got in. The door closed. Sometimes doors are soft. Sometimes they sound like a period. I walked home. I took my mother's sewing tin out of the cupboard and sat at the kitchen table in the warm circle of the gold lamp. I slid the new draft statement beside the old photos of our first label. The paper didn't shake. My hands did. I pressed my palm to the table. We exist, I whispered. The house was quiet and full at the same time. Grief sat at the table. It didn't feel like a stranger anymore. It felt like someone who had put their shoes by the door and knew where we kept the tea. The morning came with light that looked like it had been washed. Everything was sharper. My phone buzzed with a notification that felt like a bell. The statement was up. Crane and Coterie acknowledges that the following designs originated with Myra and Noor. We failed to attribute accordingly. We are correcting this and implementing permanent crediting practices. We regret the harm caused. We will fund the MIRAM Center for Community Craft in partnership with Myra and Noor and East Ridge Community Center. Effective immediately, all garments derived from the Myra and Noor pattern library will include visible attribution. It wasn't poetry, it was a start. Under it, a separate post from Alyssa's account. No glossy photo, just text on white. I failed to give credit where it was due. The hem stitch you saw last night was taught to me by a woman I did not honor, Myra, and carried by a daughter I did not respect, Nora. I am stepping down as CEO. I will take time to listen, reflect, and repair where I can. I am sorry. I didn't like the part about stepping down to take time, like a sabbatical booked through a PR firm. But she said the names. She said the stitch. Some days you take the piece you get and sew it to the next. Kaya's follow-up went live too. It had photos of the kitchen table again, the burn mark from the kettle, the original label with the little heart. The headline, "The Heartbeat Was Heard." In the first paragraph she wrote, "Revenge can look like destruction. Tonight it looked like restoration." Messages poured in. The East Ridge Community Center posted a photo of the old sewing room with a laughably small budget list taped to the wall. They'd done so much with so little for so long. Now the list had new lines, machines that don't cough, needles that don't break every third seam, fabric that doesn't skip. Leona called. Her voice held me like a coat that fits. I meant what I said, she told me. We'll fund the fellowship. You will choose the first 5 names. And whenever you're ready, you can use my little stage downtown for whatever you like. A show, a class, a quiet night. Thank you, I said. My throat found new ways to close and open in the same minute. I want the first workshop to be free. It will be, she said. Craft is a person, and people deserve welcome. Damien came over with bagels and a spreadsheet that didn't make me flinch. Here, how we can structure the fund, he said. It's boring in a brave way. Boring is a dream, I said. Complexity with kindness. Eiler and Theo knocked with coffee and chaos. They placed a small box on the table. Inside, new labels. Myra and Noor. The ampersand hugged like it meant it. The tiny stitched heart was red this time just because. We pooled money, Theo said, shrugging. It wasn't much, it felt like everything. I lifted one and pressed it flat, like Mom did. It lay there, ready, not afraid. What next? Isla asked, eyes bright, voice careful like she didn't want to push me but couldn't help believing. We make, I said, not to prove, to breathe. We signed the reversion papers 2 days later in a room at the community center that smelled like fresh paint and lemon cleaner. Ms. Rosa, who ran the place, took a photo of us with a disposable camera and laughed when it clicked. Old school truth, she said. The MIRAM Center Fund went live with a landing page that didn't show us. It showed hands. Brown, pale, old, young, steady, shaking, all sewing something that looked like love and rent and maybe a little freedom. First grant, a teen named Sierra who had been sewing curtains to pay for college books. Second, Mr. Alvarez, who never stopped making suits even when the mall moved on and forgot. Third, Bridget's apprentice, a quiet kid with eyes that saw seams like maps. At the Crane house, there were changes. A new interim CEO, sober, decent. An internal town hall where people said things with their names. The board attorney sent me a curt email. The audit has started. We will publish in 6 weeks. I believed it. Not because she said it, because I wanted to live in a world where that could be true for more than a minute. I moved the sewing machine back to the kitchen table. I cleaned its throat with a Q-tip the way Mom taught me, gentle, respectful. I threaded it and sewed a straight line on muslin just to hear the sound, the small engine of making. It calmed parts of me I didn't know were frayed. We opened a small studio after a month, not big, a second-floor space above a bakery that threw sugar into the morning air like confetti. We painted the walls a soft cream. We lined one with pegboard that held scissors and rulers like a neat choir. The lamp from the kitchen came too. It looked proud. Like a light holder with a new shore. The doorbell was an old brass thing that rang like a laugh. People climbed the stairs because they wanted to, not because a billboard told them to. They brought stories. A widow who wanted a dress that remembered her waist. A dancer who needed pants that didn't punish her for leaping. A man who wanted a jacket like the one his father wore, only kinder on the shoulders. We made a rack for community pieces. Bags stitched by Sierra, aprons by Mr. Alvarez, a jacket with pockets that held secrets and snacks. Every tag had a name, a place, a date. No ghosts. For the first Myra and Noor event, we didn't rent a runway. We set up chairs in a circle at the community center. Leona came in sneakers. Bridget handed out tissues like she knew how people leak when they see something honest. I started not with a speech, but with a needle. I want to show you something my mother taught me, I said, and 100 eyes softened at the word mother like a chord everyone knows. It's simple. It's ours. It's not a trademark you can tear off. It's a way of listening. Long, short, long. Smell the fabric when you press it, I heard my mother say in my head. It'll tell you if it's okay. When I looked up, there were people wiping their cheeks, not sad, recognizing. They had been told their work was small. Here it was cathedral. After, a little girl with paint on her fingers came up and touched the label on the inside of the bag I had made. Is that you? She asked, pointing to Noor and the tiny heart. That's me and my mom, I said, and maybe you someday. Okay, she said like we'd made a plan. Maybe we had. Damien stopped by the studio one evening with news that smelled like rain. The audit found 47 instances where credit was erased, he said. They're posting corrections. They're setting a policy. Are you staying? I asked him. Or are you done with rooms like that? He looked at the window like it had a horizon in it. I'm staying long enough to make sure this sticks, he said. Then I might come upstairs and help you count. Count what? I asked, smiling. Labels, he said. Stitches, people, wins, losses, all of it. We all laughed, the kind you don't have to apologize for. A week later, a man walked into the studio, hat in hand. He was familiar in a way that took me a second. The father of the intern who had spoken at the launch. He stood like someone who had rehearsed an apology until it was brittle. She told me you listened, he said. I wanted to say thank you. She's sewing again, but this time with her name on the tag. That's the only way to sew, I said. He nodded. He looked at the lamp, at the label, at the photo of my mother on the shelf in a frame we found at a yard sale. He wiped his nose with his sleeve, then laughed at himself and took a tissue instead. I never liked fashion, he admitted. It always felt like a room we weren't invited to. This feels like a kitchen. That's the point, I said. We have chairs. I learned that day that justice can look like a door unlocked. It can look like a table with room for one more. It can look like a label sewn straight by a girl with paint on her fingers who decided she belonged here because we told her she did. Spring came late and gentle. The tree by the gate at the cemetery put on new leaves slow, like someone opening their eyes in the morning and deciding to be brave again. I waited until the afternoon when the wind was soft. I took the black dress from the closet and laid it on the bed. I checked the seam. The label was still there, Myra and Noor. The stitches were even. The thread was strong. I put it on. I added Mom's ring to a chain. I tucked a little bundle into my pocket, a folded piece of fabric with the heartbeat sewn into it, and a mint I knew she would have laughed at me for bringing. The path to the grave was familiar now, not less sad, just less unbearable. The stone said her name in clean letters. Myra Bennett, a mother, a maker, a friend. I cleared the leaves from the base and sat cross-legged on the grass, not caring about the dress because she would have told me not to. The ground was cool. The air smelled like damp earth and cut grass and all the days we didn't get. I did it, I said. My voice didn't need to be loud, she was close. Not to break her, to stop the breaking. A bird landed on the fence and tilted its head. A sparrow. Mom would have called it a sign. I called it hello. I told her about the launch, about Leona and Bridget, about the stitch 10 feet tall on a wall, about the apology that wasn't perfect but wasn't a lie, about the fund, about the studio, about the girl with paint on her fingers, about the man who brought bagels and spreadsheets, about the tailor who hummed while she cut and the cutter who prayed while he steamed and the intern who found her name. I stitched loud, I said, like you taught me. I untied the little bundle in my pocket and set the piece of fabric on the stone. I pressed the heartbeat into the cold granite with my thumb. Long, short, long. For you, I whispered. Wind moved through the grass like breath. Far away a bus sighed. Somewhere a door closed. Somewhere else one opened. I'm not angry all the time now, I told her. It still comes. I let it through. It doesn't burn the house anymore. It just warms the kettle. I laughed, small and unpretty, the way she laughed when she burned the kettle that one time and made a joke out of a mistake that could have been a fight. I miss you, I said. It was a useless sentence and perfect. I miss you, Mom. I stayed until the shadows turned long and kind. Before I left, I did what she always did when she finished a dress. I smoothed the cloth, in this case, the grass, with both hands, like blessing. Then I stood, wiped my hands on my dress even though there was nothing on them, and blew a kiss like I was 12 again. At the gate, I turned. We exist, I said to the stone, to the sky, to the person I was becoming because my mother taught me to hold fabric like a secret and then give it away. On the walk back, my phone buzzed. A photo from Kaya, a stack of letters on the community center desk. The top one had careful handwriting, a kid's. Dear Myra and Noor, I used to think clothes come from stores. Now I know they come from people. Thank you for teaching me. I didn't cry on the street. I waited until I was halfway up the stairs to the studio and then let it come, quiet, grateful, not broken anymore. Inside, the lamp waited. I turned it on. It made a warm circle on the table. I set out fabric. I threaded the needle. I breathed like stitches do. If you've walked with me this far, you know, this wasn't about a hem. It was about the work behind a name, about the way some people take and call it vision, about the way you can be erased so softly that you don't notice until you can't find yourself in your own story anymore. I learned that revenge doesn't always look like shouting. It can look like proof in a folder. It can look like a stitch on a wall, 10 feet tall, shaking a room that thought it was soundproof. It can look like an apology you don't need to clap for to believe a little. I learned that grief can teach you patience without making you dull. You can be soft and still be steel. You can say no like a seam that won't split. I learned that power loves quiet mistakes. It hates loud truth. So make truth loud, with kindness if you can, with courage if you must, with receipts always. I learned that your name matters, not because it's printed, because it's yours. Because it's the story your mother whispered to you while you learned to thread a needle and burn a kettle and laugh instead of break. I learned that justice is not a sprint. It's a hem, neat, secure, done right so it won't fail when you sit down or run or dance. If someone tries to shrink you, don't waste your breath yelling at the door. Build a room that fits. Put a table in it. Label the chairs. Invite people who were told they were too much or not enough. Teach them the stitch they can carry in their hands when the world forgets their names. And if they ever whisper at your back like you don't belong, touch the seam. Feel the work you've put in. Know this. No one can steal the part of you that is honest. No one can copy the way your hands listen. No one can relabel your heartbeat. So wherever you are watching this, from a bus stop, a kitchen table, a quiet office, a loud home, remember the lesson I learned the hard way. Revenge that restores is stronger than revenge that ruins. Truth sown with patience will outlast 1,000 headlines. Carry your label with care, sew it in, and if someone tries to tear it out, make another one. Sew louder. Thank you for being here with me. If this story moved you, tell someone who needs to hear it. Honor the hands that make your world possible. And when you wear anything, clothes, a title, a dream, ask yourself, whose name did I forget? Then fix it. We exist.